is a character that I connect with, it is Matilda Wormwood. Now, while I do not have as bad a home life as her, she and I do share the love of reading. And I commend her on the lengths that she goes to get a little bit of reading time in Roald Dahl's Matilda. It's a funny thing about mothers and fathers. Even when their own child is the most revolting little blister you could ever imagine, they still think that he or she is wonderful. Well, there is nothing very wrong with all this. It is only when the parents begin telling us about the brilliance of their own revolting offspring that we start shouting, "Bring us a basin, we're going to be sick." Occasionally, one comes across parents who show no interest at all in their children. Mr. and Mrs. Wormwood were two such parents. They had a daughter named Matilda, and the parents looked upon Matilda as nothing more than a scab. It is bad enough when parents treat ordinary children as though they were scabs, but it becomes somehow a lot worse when the child in question is extraordinary, and by that I mean sensitive and brilliant. And Matilda was both of these things, but above all, she was brilliant. Her mind was so quick to learn that her ability should have been noticed to even the most half-witted of parents. But Mr. and Mrs. Wormwood were so wrapped up in their lives that they failed to notice anything unusual about their daughter. By the time she was 3, Matilda had taught herself to read by studying newspapers that lay around the house. At the age of 4, she could read well, and she naturally began hankering after books. "Daddy," she said, "do you think you could buy me a book?" "Well, a book?" he said. "What do you want a flaming book for?" "Well, to read, Daddy." "What's wrong with the telly, for heaven's sake? We've got a lovely telly, and here you come asking for a book." From then on, every afternoon, as soon as her mother left for bingo, Matilda would toddle down to the library. Mrs. Phelps, who had been watching her with fascination, went over to her. "Can I help you, Matilda?" "I'm wondering what to read next," Matilda said. "I've finished all the children's books." "You mean you've looked at the pictures?" "Yeah, but I read the books as well." Mrs. Phelps was stunned. "Exactly how old are you, Matilda?" she asked. 4 years and 3 months, Matilda said. Mrs. Phelps was more stunned than ever, but she had the sense not to show it. Over the next 6 months, under Mrs. Phelps' watchful eye, Matilda read the following books: Oliver Twist, Jane Eyre, Pride and Prejudice, The Invisible Man, and Grapes of Wrath. "Did you know," Miss Phelps said, "that public libraries like this allow you to borrow books? When you've chosen the book you want, bring it to me so I can make note of it, and it's yours for 2 weeks. When Mr. Wormwood arrived back from the garage that evening, his face was as dark as a thundercloud. He strode into the living room, where Matilda happened to be curled up in an armchair, totally absorbed in a book. Mr. Wormwood switched on the television. The screen lit up. The program blared. Mr. Wormwood glared at Matilda. She had somehow trained herself by now to block her ears to the ghastly sound of the dreaded box, and for some reason this infuriated the father. "Don't you ever stop reading!" he snapped at her. "Oh, hello, Daddy," she said pleasantly. "Did you have a good day?" "What is this trash?" he said, snatching the book from her. "I'm fed up with your reading anyway. Go and find yourself something useful to do." With a frightening suddenness, he now began ripping the pages out of the book and throwing them into the wastebasket. Matilda froze in horror. There seemed little doubt that the man felt some kind of jealousy. "It's a library book!" Matilda cried. "I have to return it to Miss Phelps." "Then you'll have to buy another one, won't you?" the father said, still tearing out pages. "You'll have to save your pocket money until there's enough to buy a new one, won't you?" Most children in Matilda's place would have burst into floods of tears. She didn't do this. She sat there very still. She seemed to know that neither crying nor sulking got anyone anywhere. The only sensible thing to do when you are attacked, as Napoleon once said, to counterattack. The plan that was now beginning to hatch in her mind depended upon whether or not Fred's parrot was really as good a talker as Fred made out. Now, Fred was a friend of Matilda's, and he had been going on about this great talking parrot that his father had given him. So the following afternoon, Matilda set out for Fred's house to investigate. She knocked on his door and asked if he would be kind enough to show her the famous bird. Fred was delighted, and he led her up to his bedroom where a truly magnificent blue and yellow parrot sat. "Well, there it is," Fred said. "Its name is Chopper." "Well, make it talk," Matilda said. "Well, you can't make it talk. You have to be patient." Suddenly the parrot said, "Hello." It was exactly like a human voice. "That's amazing! What else can it say?" "Rattle my bones," the parrot said, giving a wonderful imitation of a spooky voice.
It is pretty marvelous, don't you think?
It's fabulous. Will you lend him to me for one night?
All right, he said, if you promise to return him tomorrow.
Matilda staggered back to her house, carrying the tall cage. There was a fireplace in the dining room, and she now set about wedging the cage up the chimney and out of sight. "Hello," the bird called down to her.
Shut up, you nut,
Matilda said as she went to wash the soot off her hands. That evening, while Mother, Father, and Matilda were having supper, as usual, in the living room, in front of the television, a voice came loud and clear from the dining room across the hall. "Hello!" "Harry!" the mother cried, turning white. "There's someone in the house! I heard a voice!" Matilda jumped up. "Shh," she said.
Listen.
They all stopped eating and sat there, listening. "Hello!"
It's burglars,
hissed the mother.
They're in the dining room.
"Well, I think they are," the father said.
Well, then go and catch them, Harry.
The father didn't move. He seemed in no hurry to dash off and be a hero.
Well, get on with it,
hissed the mother. "Why don't we all go together and look?"
They're definitely in the dining room, Matilda whispered. I'm sure they are.
The mother grabbed the poker from the fireplace. The father took a golf club that was standing in the corner. "Hello," came the voice again. "Come on," Matilda cried as she burst into the living room. "Stick 'em up!" The others followed her, waving their weapons. There was no one there.
I heard him, Harry,
shrieked the mother.
I distinctly heard his voice.
I'm certain I heard him, Matilda cried as she began searching behind the sofa and behind the curtains. Then, once again, soft and spooky this time, "Rattle my bones," it said. They all jumped.
It's a ghost, Matilda said. I know it's a ghost. I've heard it here before. This room is haunted. Save us!
The mother screamed. "I'm getting out of here," the father said. They all fled, slamming the door behind them. The next afternoon, Matilda managed to get a grumpy parrot down from the chimney and out of the house without being seen.
Well, did it behave itself?
Fred asked her.
We had a lovely time with it, Matilda said. My parents adored it.